All right, welcome back for the episode of Carnivore Trades. Today is Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. If you're not done so already, please give the video a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts and analysis. Anyways, let's get into it today. So a little bit of a holiday hangover in effect today. So markets trading lower here, down 50 basis points or so on the spiders. Triple Q's down just under 1/4%, although getting a little bit of a float here. As we get closer to the bell here in about 10-15 minutes, NVIDIA at Tesla, take a look here. Just getting that complete FOMO bid. Tesla up another 5%. NVIDIA up 2 3/4 here. Tesla above that 270 level. We did have that measured move, remember, to 267-ish. And that got hit, obviously, essentially on Friday. And obviously now pushing through that a little bit here into some resistance. But again, when you get these... I mean, look at this. This is an hourly here. But look at this weekly chart here of Tesla. Really extended here. Powerhouse move going into a lot of resistance. We'll see how it behaves there. But either way, markets right now in the short term still pulling back a little bit, although they are coming a little bit off the lows. We do have Powell speaking tomorrow and Thursday, so we'll see how that goes out. I think he tried to be hawkish last week, and I don't think that, I mean, obviously the market didn't really buy into that. I don't really think he went about it that well if he was trying to be hawkish. So we'll see what he says tomorrow. But right now in the short term, so again, we're watching this area here. So it's kind of white trend line. It's not official, right? It's just kind of a vicinity there. But we are essentially about to close right on that. But the bigger level to me in the short term is 436.23. So that's going to be this green bar low from Thursday. If you take that out on a closing basis, that opens the door for 430. And then, 425 and then the gap fill. So that's where you're kind of, if the bears can take some control here and we see some profit taking, those would be some levels to watch on the downside. For the upside, again, it's pretty simple, right? 450 pivot top, right? So if you get above, Thursday's high, which is at, 443.90, that opens the door for 447, 450. I believe there's I want to say there's a fib here at 447 and change. Yeah, so 447 on the dot is your 7.5. And then, of course, a slight pierce of that would be the whole round number of 450. It would be kind of unusual to not test that if we got that close. But either way, those are the levels here we're watching. Interesting to say what Powell says tomorrow. A lot of stuff going on, right? Treasury issuing out new debt. Buyback window now closed for stocks. OPEX, quarterly OPEX is over with. So that kind of Vanna charm, not really there right now. And we'll see how markets hold up. We've been down the last 2 days. Nothing crazy. We're not seeing any, crazy volume. We did have high volume on Friday, but, it's OPEX. That's totally normal for that last and end of quarter rebalancing. So that, usually get that big pop in volume, about 7 million shares there in the final hour or final 10 minutes. So again, that's totally normal. But either way, right now, those are the levels we're watching here. Outside of that, we're just kind of inside of this bar from Thursday. And we did come off the lows here for this shortened trading week. Again, Powell on deck tomorrow. So we'll see how that plays out. For the Qs, pretty much the same thing, right? Except Friday, we did have that big gap up. So that would take you, if you were to get above that, your next level is probably, right around 378. So you see these pivots here. But, you have pretty good resistance here. 1, 2 pivots, even 3 you can make a case. And then right here as well, let's actually draw it in while we're at it. There you go. So we're right into that area. And, 1, 2, 3, 4 pivots. And we got a pretty good rejection off of that. Although, again, today we are off the lows here. Take a look. We're floating right back up. We were down about 25 basis points, and now we're only down 10. So nice little float up there. Again, Tesla getting a crackhead bid. Definitely helping out. The Nasdaq is really the rest of the sectors under pressure other than NVIDIA here. SMH down 1/4%. IGV down as well. But again, levels here on the downside. Again, this green bar low, you take that out. Probably about 355, we'll call it. And then if you're through that, 350. And then really 340 is kind of your next big level. If you get through that, and this is the concern here for the Qs, is on the weekly, there's not a lot of weekly chart support really. You got a pivot here at 334, but the big level is around 325. So there is real estate for a correction here. It's all about, can the bears actually do that? Is there appetite for selling here? By the way, take a look at this trend line here. pretty good trend line there going all the way back to 2020. And that's where we stalled out right now. So those are the levels we're watching here in the near term. Again, we'll see what we get tomorrow. It's too really early for me to say right now that we're in corrective mode. It's only 2 days. I need to see more technical damage. And I'd like to see some volume come into the market before we start making those types of calls. But either way, markets are a little bit lower here today. We'll see what we get. Tomorrow, Russell 2000 also down, although coming off the lows like everything else. That still has the upside bias to 192. So just be aware of that. Dow, same thing. Again, you get above the high here, we'll say 348 on the upside. If we get below that, we'll call it 335 here in the near term. And then, of course, that big gap fill. And, of course, 331.45, everybody's favorite level. SMH, we talked about down 0.25%. Nothing terrible there. You're still just going into a lot of resistance here on the weekly. So that may need to do some stalling out. And backing and filling IGV also going into that big level. Didn't quite hit it, but pivot on the weekly, and we backed off that now, just an inside day here. To start off the week, down almost 1% though. So I know Oracle, very, very overbought and extended here. That is finally pulling back a little bit here, down 2.64%. You get below that green bar, then, I mean, this can go all the way down and test, 115, 116. But for right now, Oracle pulling back, and that is weighing down. On cloud software, Dow Transport's red as well, still inside of that green bar from Thursday. That can still get to 15.2 in the near term, but if you take out Thursday's bar, you probably go down to 14.450, maybe even 14.250. So those are the levels to watch there. Over to bond yields, or rather bond notes. 2-year here, up 6 basis points on the day. Let's take a look at the actual yields. I like looking at those better. And there's our Bitcoin, which we'll get into in a minute. But 2-year yield at 4.695. Again, no real problems here. Up move. We had a little pullback, little cup kind of look. And if this flags up, it's going to 5%. So it's really that simple here. That will put pressure on the Fed. I know a lot of the things that people talked about over the last week is as soon as the Fed pauses, historically, that means they pivot. My assumption here is, or my analysis of the situation is that the only reason they paused is because they're going to issue $1.5 trillion in new debt. And the government said, hey, can you not give us a higher interest rate on that? If you ask Powell, which they did, they kind of asked him about that last week. He didn't really give a straight answer. I think it's because he doesn't want to say the obvious part out loud. So a lot of economists expect a pivot. I do not expect that. And it will be a first, pretty much a first time in history that this is going to happen. Now, here's the other other side of it. If he does pivot, what is that then, right? What's going to happen in the next 30 days to make that happen? Because right now we don't have the data for that. So we're going to have to see a major bank failure. We're going to have to see something, big. Blinken today basically just gave the green light to Taiwan. If you didn't, to China, to Taiwan. I don't know if you caught that, but so just stuff to consider here. But either way, 2-year holding up. Looks like it wants to get to 5%. 5 holding up as well, just underneath that 4% level. That can get up to 4.4 if you consolidate enough. And then the 10-year here, 3.8. That's set to 4. And then the 30-year, you get above 4. You're going back to 4.2. So those are the levels there on yields, and I do expect them to push higher here outside of some type of black swan. That's really, again, we don't have the data right now to suggest otherwise. So anyways, XHB here, that's continuing to hold up green on the day, up 0.2%. Remember, that can still get 278. ITB, again, we'll give that to, we'll say 83 for ITB. And then VNQ here backing off, still an inside bar pattern, still on the weaker side, but we'll give it the upside bias to 86 in the near term. XLF also backing off pretty nicely. It did come off the lows, but not really a ton, right? Look at the intraday action, kind of on the weaker side there. So maybe it is financials after all. Maybe a big bank is going to be in some trouble here. Again, we never closed above that 50-week moving average, and you still have kind of a bear flag look there on the XLF. Just something to consider here moving forward. KRE, one thing I talked about in the weekend video is these guys can't do capital raises, and they want to. They can't do it with their share price where they are. Investors will freak out and dump their stock. So it's pretty much that simple. This is still not a terrible pattern. 4A moved to 46. That's really all I see for it at the moment. KBE still can get to 39 to 40 in the near term. XBD pulling back as well, still inside of this green bar. If you get through that, 490 is your level. Crude, not Colgate, crude. That was flattish today, right? So down just 58 cents there. Kind of a little hammer doji type candle. Nothing terrible, nothing great. I still think this wants to head down to these lower levels here, and then possibly down to 50 to 60 bucks. But right now, it's still just in a choppy range. XLE much lower, much weaker as well. Definitely doing some chart damage here, down 2%. So look at that trend line. It's been trying to save it for weeks, done a lot of damage around it, and ultimately you have a weekly red bar and a bear flag. So that is setting up for a move lower. I've been talking about that for a while. Patiently waiting to get some of these energy names on discount, though, possibly later this year. XOP down as well. And the OIH here, the best one of the bunch. That is still above 270, but needs to get a weekly close above 280 to show some real strength there. Natural gas pulling back. Now, this is the futures here, so that's not going to show yesterday's gain. Nat gas was up nicely yesterday, but then pulling back here. Was a little stretched in the short term. Again, pulling back into this area here, but it's had a nice pop over the last couple of days. Again, it was green yesterday. It's not showing that on the futures here. It just counts everything as one day because we had the holiday, but that is pulling back here after that nice pop last week. Dollar index getting a small bid here with the markets down. And look, I have kind of most of my dollar chart back, so I guess thank you, Thinkorswim, even though half of these candles still don't even work. But either way, still inside of this red bar. Definitely neutral, bear in the near term on the DXY unless you get back above 102. Let's call it 103 right now. And then really, 103.37 is kind of the bigger level that it's got to clear. But definitely neutral to bear look on the DXY right now. Market's set to close here, and we'll get back to the spiders in a second, but let's talk gold here. So there's a closing bell down 1.18% here. Still flirting with this area here and just hammering on this level. We've been talking about having a bias towards 1900. And I mean, how many times are we going to hammer on that 20 moving average before we're going to bid off of it? So it's kind of running out of time to get a bid here. So I do have a kind of a bias for 1900 handle to get touched on gold. We'll reevaluate it if and when it gets there. Silver here, same thing. Big outside move there, down about 3 3/4 there. And this actually was holding up, but now you have a failure, right? So you had a nice inside bar building up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days inside. Big outside move with volume. So silver here, again, I've been telling you guys, probably wants to get down to 21, 22. That's starting to set up like that's going to play out here. So big outside move there for silver today. Platinum here down as well. Told you 960 would have to get tested, and it did. We'll see if it reacts off of that. That's not a buy level. It's just a level that it has to test. Palladium here also backing off. I'm watching this one for pattern. And then copper here, inside day, nothing terrible there. If that consolidates, maybe it can go test 4 one more time. But I still think it wants to ultimately get down to the 340 handle. All right, over to Bitcoin here. So Bitcoin had a nice pop. A lot of the Bitcoin equities too as well. Marathon, Riot were up nicely as well today. But Bitcoin here up 4.36% currently. Nice outside move. I really would have liked this to get to 23.5. That's kind of where that target suggested it should go. But it got a nice bid here today. We'll see how it reacts. Again, you're gonna have that. You're gonna have some resistance at 28.5 right there, and you can make a case. This trend line, you can extend that out. So right in this general vicinity, there's going to be some resistance, 28.5 to 29,000. We'll see how it behaves. I really would have liked it to pierce that 200 MA, really get some run some stops out of it before looking at this. But hey, it got a bid right now, and we'll continue to watch it on the weekly. It's not terrible, right? So you're back above that 20-week moving average. Not a terrible consolidation pattern for a lift here. So again, Bitcoin holding up okay, and we'll just leave it at that right now. But watch that level 28.5 to 29,000. All right, lastly, let's get back over to the spiders really quick and recap. So down 0.5%. So nice little dip there in the last 10 minutes. So nothing crazy, nothing terrible. Qs did end up finishing down 0.25%. Nvidia did come in a little bit. Tesla, of course, didn't come in into the bell. Again, we'll watch those levels. Spiders 430, 623. So that's the level to watch on the downside. If that opens the door to 430, if we move down, and then Qs here 363.98, that takes you down to about 355. If that level gets breached on a closing basis. Anyways, guys, gonna wrap it up here. You guys take care. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I will talk to you guys all tomorrow.